but I'm gonna just
Okay.
so we don't forget. Okay. I think your lighting is good. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. Well, listen, man. As you can tell, the timestamp from the time that I was trying to get a hold of you, Vinney, I can't tell you how many people I told your story to, and they were like they all stopped in their tracks and couldn't believe what I was telling them. And I said, "Man, I'm trying to get him on. This guy would be an amazing guest because it's actually one of the things, a subject that I've always wanted to have on the show. A friend's mom went through something similar. She was in a hospital bed, some kind of surgery. I forgot what kind of illness she had, but it wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't like a death, um, on her deathbed or anything like that. It was just a normal type of surgery. And she said that she saw this white, bright light and a figurine like Jesus. And then there was a Netflix special that came out. Not sure if you saw that. And I'm like, man, I would love to have an episode about something like this. And then your story came out, and I am so grateful that you finally got back to me and we're able to put this thing together.
Yeah,
Uh,
me too. This is
yeah,
cool.
yeah. Uh, let's just start with the day and how you kind of went around it. I know that in that day you took some sort of powder that you would take normally. Were you on a workout regimen throughout your life? Was that kind of a routine for you?
I had played high school football and high school rugby, and so yeah, I was well used to working out in the gyms on a regular basis. But at that time, rewind my life back to when I was 25, which was quite a while ago, and I was working out every day. Yeah, sometimes 2 times a day. I was essentially trying to become somewhat of a bodybuilder, not like for a professional circuit or anything, but I was just really working on my body every day. My best friend was a trainer, and I had done a little bit of studying myself to be a trainer, and I just wanted to have the best body possible.
So that day, did you run out of some product that you typically take? Is it like a pre-workout product or a
So
post?
what it was a post workout, but you would actually take it pre workout. And here's how it would work. It was a healing accelerator is really what it was, and it would use the natural chemicals in your own body. It would trigger your body to heal in about a 24 to 48 hour period instead of the traditional 72 hour period. Because traditionally, when your muscles heal, it takes a good 2 to 3 days for those muscles to heal. Whereas on this supplement, you could get that healing process to happen much sooner, much quicker.
Hmm.
And it was weird. It was a relaxant. It was a relaxant. The effect that it had is it would relax the physiology. And we were using this supplement for quite a few months from the United States. They were all different suppliers. There was many different brands back then. And in fact, there was different forms of this supplement. One was called this, one was called that, and they were different chemicals, but they were essentially the same supplement. And it was just a muscle recovery accelerator, but a non-steroid. So there's no steroids in it. It was working within the legal guidelines at the time, and this was in 2003. We we kept running out of it, and we would work through it so fast. We would get on a wait list at GNC and the different vitamin suppliers, and they were always sold out. We were on a 6 month wait list for some when my buddy found some on a website in Thailand. So we decided to order it, and it was interesting because when it came, it was still liquid, and this is a liquid supplement. So you would take one bottle cap worth, and that single bottle cap was plenty. That's all you needed. That was enough for 12 to 24 hours. One bottle cap, that's all you needed. And the supplement came. It was liquid, just like the normal one from the United States. But what was interesting is all the writing on the bottle was in Thai. which Thailand uses a script language, not Romanized, right? So there was no way to understand what the language was. So we opened the bottle, we sniffed it. It smelled just like the American stuff. So we took off this bottle cap, we poured a full bottle cap, and we each took one. Within seconds of taking that, we both knew. We both were like, whoa, this is strong. We could both feel it instantly, right away. And we knew that wasn't normal. We'd been using this other American version for quite a while. We knew what it felt like, and it didn't feel like this. This felt much, much stronger. So we decided, hey, in times past, if we got a little too much of this stuff, we would eat some food and we would feel better. We'd feel better right away. So we decided to head down to the Dairy Queen, and it was only a couple of blocks from his place. We went down there, and when we got there to the Dairy Queen, my buddy who was driving, he was already starting to pass out. So I was like shaking him, keeping him awake. I even put his car in park for him because he wasn't even coherent enough to put it in park. I stumbled out of the car. I was so dizzy. I was staggering and stumbling. I made it into the Dairy Queen and went directly to the bathroom. And it was a single-use bathroom. So out of habit, I locked that door. Right after I locked that door, I went over towards the toilet to relieve myself. I didn't know if I was going to throw up or if I needed to go other things. And as I was standing there, the next thing I know, it felt like the whole room started to spin. And then bam, I felt something really hard. And I think what it was is I felt my head like slam the ground from the back of my head. And the next thing I know, all of a sudden, I feel this cold, weightless electricity flowing around me. And I felt like I became energy. And I felt as if there was no pain whatsoever. And doing your bodybuilding, you're in pain all the time. And all of a sudden I was out of pain, completely out of pain. And that was the first thing that I noticed, that there was no pain anymore. And I felt somewhat weightless, but I felt very comfortable. I felt as if this is what I was always meant to be. And I had partied and dabbled in drugs in the past before this. And I felt, wow, this is that high, that kind of high that you're searching for when you're getting into drugs and that kind of thing, but it's way better. And I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't understand if it was the supplement I had just taken or what was going on. But in front of me, there was this grayish light, and it was very foggy. And the fog started to clear. And as it cleared, I could actually see from above this whole restaurant of the Dairy Queen. I could see it all. To me, it looked like there was no ceiling on it, no roof. I could see into the dining room, into the bathrooms, both of them. I could see the kitchen. I could see the front counter. I was looking at this whole operation, and I saw my buddy. I didn't realize that after I had come in, he did end up coming stumbling in. He collapsed on the first booth, and he started to vomit all over the table there. And the manager came over, saw that. He called an ambulance, and this ambulance came. They picked him up. They took him away. I watched this all happen. But that's when I started to realize I was hearing every single thought of everyone in that building. Every thought. I mean, to the random, mundane thoughts of some customers over here, to the thoughts of the cook in the back, the manager, the under manager, like all these people. I could hear every thought they were having, and it felt so loud and congested with noise. So I started to tune it out, and somehow, with just my intention, my desire, I was able to tune it out, and I could focus on one person who was thinking, and I could focus just on their thoughts. And I was just really amazed at this. And this is a funny part of this. I had worked previously in a major television show. I had also worked in some films, and I had the thought, this is really weird. Why would the director shoot this movie? I felt like I was watching a movie. Why would he shoot this movie from the ceiling down? It didn't make sense to me. I'd never seen a movie like that. And I kept thinking, this is interesting. or I was trying to figure out if the director was trying to take like an artistic spin, or just do something weird and odd. So I'm watching all this happen, and I look in that bathroom and I see a dead body. I look down and I see that that dead body is wearing clothes that look like my clothes, but it couldn't be me because me was up here and I was watching everything. So it wasn't possible that it was me. And to tell you the truth, that body didn't look like me in the face, not anymore. The neck had gone very wide, like really, really wide. And the face had gone purple, like stark purple in both sides of the cheeks. And there was like yellow blotches starting to form in the face. And it looked like a bad Hollywood makeup job. It didn't look real to me. It looked almost fake. So here I am. I'm still processing this like it's a movie. And I see this one customer. He kept trying to go to the bathroom, and the door kept being locked for about an hour. So he went to that manager and said, "Hey, I need to go to the bathroom. Can you unlock the door?" The manager goes over there, he knocks on the door, no answer. He unlocks the door and sees this dead guy. Sees a dead guy on the floor. He calls over his under manager, or his assistant manager, which was a girl. She was like 16 or 17, really young. And he had her call 911, and then she handed him the phone while he sat there and talked to 911. And then he directed her to go down and touch the body to see if there's a pulse. And when she touched around the neck area, number one, the body had vomit all over it. And I'm sure there was not a good smell. But when she touched the neck, she like pulled her hand back and she was like, "It's cold. He feels cold. He doesn't feel warm." And at that point, the manager said that to the operator on the phone. And the operator said, "You know what? Don't touch the body. Secure the room. Make sure nobody goes in there, and wait for police or medical to arrive." And the next one on the scene was another ambulance, a second one. And on this crew, to me, I had a miracle with this crew, because there was a rookie there. This rookie, it was his first week out of teaching and training, and he was kind of shadow following these two veteran medics, and he was the third guy out. So he was sitting in the back of this ambulance. They pulled up to the scene. The two veterans go rushing in. The rookie's kind of just eyeballing things, looking over everything. They asked him to go get something. I don't remember what they asked him to get, but he ran back and he got it. They were doing chest compressions. They were trying to get the body to come back, to get some sign of life to come back. They weren't able to do it. After a few minutes of trying, they pronounced the body dead. They did ask the medic to go back and get a bag. And this particular ambulance, it depends on what companies are out there, but some companies do carry these bags. This company did. They brought out this bright yellow bag. They unfurled it, they unzipped it, and they worked the body into that bag onto a gurney and then strapped it down. They did perform all the paperwork to pronounce DOA, or dead on arrival. And this is all processing. At the same time, I can hear this rookie. I can hear his thoughts, and I can hear him thinking thoughts like, "Why are we quitting so quickly? Why aren't we trying this? Why aren't we trying that?" He kept thinking of all these protocols, all these extra things they could have done that he just learned about. That why aren't they trying everything? They gave up so quick. To him, it was too quick to give up. And he was really berating himself in his own mind, thinking thoughts like, "Why am I even becoming a medic if I can't make a difference for people like this?" Because he was the rookie, the two veterans, they tasked him with watching the dead body in the back of the ambulance, just kind of babysitting it. And he sat back there and he just stared at this body in the bag and felt horrible. He wanted to make a difference for everyone he could come in contact with, not just this dead guy. So he continued down that thought process. The other two medics, they went out and got all the paperwork filled out. As they were done finishing the paperwork, a police officer showed up. They traded some paperwork with a police officer. The officer cleared them to go ahead and take the body to the medical examiner. They went from there to get in the ambulance and drive away from the scene. As they were driving away from the scene, I could feel this turmoil, this burning inside the rookie. He really wanted to do something for this dead guy. He wanted to try something. And he could feel this battle going on in his own head. Like, if you do this, you could get fired. You don't want to do it. But at the same time, if you have a chance to make a difference, you should do it for this guy. And he was going through this mental debate. And about a block away from the scene, all of a sudden, this glow started to form. And it was around where your heart would be. And it looked like a light. You know, to my perception, it looked like a real light. The only way I can explain this is, you know, our eyes, our human eyeballs, they only see a small percentage of the real light that's out there. And I felt like this light was coming from this guy, this rookie. It started to glow around his heart space. And as it got brighter and brighter, I heard very loudly a voice say, "This one's not dead." And to me, it was such a loud voice. I looked around to see where that came from. It felt like it came from behind me, but behind me, I couldn't see anything. I could only see like dark fog or blackness. But in front of me, I could still see this whole scene unfolding. And I'm going with the ambulance. I'm seeing on top of the ambulance into it as it's moving down the street. And I see this glow now. It gets brighter and brighter and brighter to the point where this medic, he was glowing from his waist till above his head. It was very, very bright. And for a second time, this voice, it said even sterner and louder. It said, "This one's not dead." And at that point, this medic, he felt like that was enough for him. He felt like, I got to try something. So he had to undo some straps on the body because the body had been strapped down to the gurney inside of the body bag. So he had to undo these straps. He unzipped the body bag and he got it zipped down to about the chest area. And he was feeling around the neck. He was trying to feel for any kind of pulse. He didn't feel anything. In fact, he felt just coldness and almost a hardness starting to set up in the muscles. But still, he felt driven. He went ahead and he undid more straps on the body so that he could get down to the femur area, to the leg area. And on the thigh, there's a big artery there. He was feeling for that artery. And as he was feeling for it, he made contact with my femur bone. And when he made contact with that bone, there was like this spark. And it was just very quick ignition of energy. And I felt it where I was. I in fact like jumped, like, whoa, what was that? And still to me, I'm third party to all this. I'm witnessing this like a viewer. I had no idea that I was interacting with what was going on here. But I did jump because I felt that spark. I knew he did too, because as soon as he felt that, he leaped into action. To him, that was enough of a sign that he needed to try something. So he began to feed oxygen into the lungs. He opened up the shirt. It had already been opened up a little bit by the other medics. He opened it even further. He hooked up this defib machine. It's one of those electrical machines to shock the heart. And when he hooked that machine up, it sends this alarm, this loud beeping alarm. And when the loud beeping alarm happened, the veteran medics both looked back to see what was going on. And when they saw him doing this, they just started to lay into him. They were cussing at him. They said, "You're going to get fired. You can't do this. This is your first week on the job. You're already going to break protocol. You can't do this." And he acted like he didn't even hear them. He kept going. He went ahead and he let the first charge go and nothing happened. He went ahead and recharged the defib machine for a second time. And on the second time, he got a single heartbeat. And with that single heartbeat, both the veteran medics completely clammed up and they stopped talking. They just wanted to see with kind of apprehension what would happen on the third round. So he did allow the third round of shocks, and with that third round of shock, the heart started to beat on it. With the assistance of the defib, it reanimated or reignited whatever it is. Or there's some doctors that said it was still beating, but it was so slow that you couldn't read it. But to me, if the body was so cold that it was described as cold to the touch, um, I feel I was dead. But they did get the heartbeat going. And to me, one of the miracles of miracles is that when this heart started, they were less than a half block from a hospital. They weren't going to the hospital. They were going to the medical examiner's office to turn in this body. But this body had come back alive with the assistance of this rookie medic. And so they were able to take it directly into the hospital. And that hospital, they did radio ahead. They had a few moments notice. They were able to get a team together and have another team meet the body in the ER, in the ICU, or in the ER. And they were able to essentially triage and do all the things that they need to do to a body in this condition, in this state. And still, at this point, I had no idea that everything I had been watching was me. Not until they took the body off of the medical gurney and they put it on the hospital bed. When they did this, the body started to go into all sorts of seizures. It was flailing, it was vomiting. It had a lot of problems going on. So the medical staff at the hospital, they knew they had to strap the body down. They started out with the legs. They strapped both legs down. Then they strapped the right arm. And then they went to go strap the left arm. I felt myself, me, sitting up here watching, I felt myself resist that strap being put on the body. And I actually felt myself break that strap. I literally broke it. And then they came back with a bigger strap and used a bigger strap, like a leg strap for that left arm. And that's when I realized, that's when I had this aha moment that everything that I've been watching was my own death. And I had no idea whatsoever. I didn't understand how that could be me, because me was up here. The only thing I can equate it to here on earth is as if you're driving down the street, you look over and you see a car that looks just like your car. And you see a guy driving that car that looks just like you. But there's no way it's you because you're in this car. That's what it felt like. It felt like that wasn't possible to be me. But now I was watching the impossible. I was watching something outside of me, but it was also me. So I allowed this fear to come into me. I felt so dumb. I felt like, how could you be such an idiot? You were watching your own death this whole time. You had no idea. And I started to let this fear clamp onto me and come around me to a point where I felt like it was going to snuff me out. And I started to see all the bad things I ever did in my life from the youngest age. Anything, naughty or bad that I ever did in my life, I started to see that happen in front of me very fast. And I started to see it from the eyes of the people around me, as well as from my own eyes. And so I got to see it multidimensionally from both directions, anything bad I ever did. And then I got to the end of that spool, that timeline, up until I was 25 years old, I had the thought, why am I even alive? Why do I exist if that is all I am? And that's when this tremendous warmth, it came from behind me and it warmed me from my back over my shoulder space, or what would be your shoulder space. And it started to warm my heart. And as it did, I started seeing all the good I ever did. And I did a lot of good. I was no saint, but I did a heck of a lot of good. And I got to see the good that I did from my perspective and the perspective of those people around me. I got to see that I had impact on people when I didn't even know I had impact. I had positive impact all the time with people. And I started to truly believe that there was a reason for me to be there, to exist, to be existing, and to be a being. And as I felt that feeling that there was a reason, I could recognize that this tremendous love I was feeling, it was coming directly from behind me. So I turned around and I look, and at first I just kind of glance and I see a gentleman back there. So I turn my countenance, I turn who I was around, and I see this gentleman. He's all dressed in white. He's got a long white beard, long hair, long white hair, and just beautifully pink skin. And it's weird because most time in life you don't think of like skin being pink and beautiful, but this was, it was beautifully pink skin. This skin, it glistened because light was coming from this man. And as I'm looking at all this, the first thought I had was, oh, you're God. That was the first thing I thought. And he smiled, and without using his mouth, he replied to me. And he said, no, son, I'm not God. And my follow-up thought was, well, are you Christ? Are you Jesus Christ? You know, I was raised Christian. I I believe so much of that connection with Father and Christ and with God in Christ. And I thought, well, if you're either one or the other or both, you know, I didn't quite understand that. I asked, I was like, well, are you Jesus Christ? And he smiled and he just sent me so much love. And he said, no, son, I'm not Christ. And I love that you have so much energy and excitement for that. He said, I'm your guide. I'm here. My name is Drake. You can call me Drake. And I'm here to guide you wherever you want to go. I can guide you forward into what's next for you. I can guide you back to your body if you want. And when he kind of gestured back to my body. And when he did, I looked back at my body, and no joke, there was an orderly sitting on the waist and like trying to hold down the body while he was doing something. I couldn't see what he was doing, but to me, it looked like hell. To me, that looked like hell. And I told him, I was like, I don't want that. I want to go to wherever this love is coming from, this tremendous love that's coming off of you. I've never felt something like that. I want that. I want more of that. Can you help me go wherever that comes from? And he explained that comes from my home. And he explained it was his home as well. And we could go to both of our home where we both originally came from. So we began this journey, and this journey, it was crazy. It was life-changing. This journey, he explained to me, he said, Vinney, this journey that we're on, that you've embarked on, it's not a regular journey. It's not going just from one distance place to another. That for us to get where we're going, I had to raise my energy. And the way he explained it to me is he explained it as if love was a frequency. And I needed to raise my love frequency so that I could get close to what the heaven love frequency is. And as I got closer and closer to that love energy, I would synchronize to that energy and be able to enter that space. But if I wasn't able to raise that love energy, I couldn't go there. But what he was going to do is he was going to help me. He was going to guide me all along the way to raise that energy sequence by sequence by sequence. And so we began this journey. And I told him he didn't need to worry. I was raised Christian. I was saved. I was baptized. I had taken Jesus Christ as my savior. And so I felt like because of that, there must be a special back door for me. I felt like, oh, you know, I get the Christian VIP entrance. You can just take me right there. I almost felt like it was an escalator or some type of special access that I got because I had that. And Drake
Vinny,
smiled at me.
sorry, Vinny, at that point, did you think you were dead, or were you
Oh, I
dead?
knew I was dead. I
Okay.
knew I was dead.
So you think this
I
is
knew I was
just
dead.
heaven? This is what happens when you die. You meet
Yes.
named Drake. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. For me, It was this guy Drake. At the time, I didn't know who he was. Later, I found out who he was.
Okay.
But yeah, so I began that journey. He took me on this journey where um, I started going towards the heavenly space, and he taught me these different steps to get my energy level up to a high enough love energy to actually get to the heaven space. One of the most important steps that he showed me is I had to understand what authenticity really was, and I had to know who I truly was, not who I thought I was, not who I would make myself out to look or to be around my friends, around my coworkers, but to be authentically me. And that was a big one for me. I thought I was authentic. He helped me understand and see that I was authentic in ways, but in many ways I was putting up masks. Everywhere I went, I put up masks. And he helped me see that in this life, when you're very young and you're very old, you tend to be really authentic. But in between there, like the most of us, we have a hard time being authentic. So he showed me that was the foremost, most important thing for me to learn. And then he went ahead and he helped me along the way. There was a lot more that he taught me, but we could speak for hours just on what he taught me along the way. But I got to a point where I saw this space, this beautiful space. At first it looked like a white sun. The way that our sun looks, it looks fairly white or light, but it tints towards the golden side of the light. This space, it looked like a perfectly white sun. And it was like perfect white light. As we approached and got closer and closer, I realized that the sun itself was a planet, and that it had mountains and trees and lakes and oceans and just all sorts of expansive spaces. It was far bigger than anything in our side of the universe. It, uh, I feel like our sun itself could fit multiple times across the inside of this place. It's that big. It's very, very big. And as we got closer to it, I was able to touch down in this space. I was able to feel my feet actually touch the grass as we came down. And I felt that when I first touched that grass, I felt as if I was finally home. I felt that this was where I had always come from, and this is where I was always supposed to be, was here. And as this grass like almost reached up to meet me as I came down and my toes went into the grass, I could feel that every single blade of grass had a very distinct loving consciousness, a very loving energy in it. And that the amount of shades of green, there's millions and millions of shades of green that we don't have here. And there were so many different shades of green coming just from this grass. And that as I touched it, I could actually taste it. I could taste like this sweet aroma. And then I could actually smell almost this very light lemony smell that was sweet, but it was also like grass too, of course. But all of this is just from touching it. And I could hear this. It felt like a little symphony or a very beautiful harmony coming off of the grass. And I could definitely sense that in this heaven space, there's all these other senses we don't have here. And I was experiencing this grass through all these other senses. And I could feel that this grass really loved me, like loved me more than I had ever been loved in my life. And just plugging into that, it was extremely healing. I was raised in a pretty rough home. I had a great mom, and my dad and I didn't see eye to eye, and I had a rough go of it with him for a lot of my life. And that rough go that I had put a lot of cracks and a lot of chips and a lot of breaks in my soul, really like all over my soul. And just plugging into this grass, I could begin to feel this healing, this feeling in the cracks, type energy. And it was all unconditional love, all of it. I could feel there was nothing I could do in my life that I would deserve this much love. And that this love was just openly granted to all of us that go there. I could feel that again, there was nothing I could do to earn that love. It was far greater than anything I could earn.
And this is
And
just
as I'm
touching the grass,
and this is
stepping on
just the
grass,
grass.
just the
This
grass.
is just the grass, yeah.
Sheesh.
And at that point, Drake,
Yeah.
yeah, he was laughing. He was like kind of enjoying this. And he explained, he's like, if you think the grass is good, you should check out the flowers. And I was like freaking out. There's flowers, and instantly he took my consciousness from the grass that I was experiencing, and then instantly I was on a flower, and it was almost like the size, or I was like the size of a bee, and I was experiencing this flower, and it was so many more things about the flower that were even greater than the grass, and I could feel more healing coming from me. And then Drake showed me the trees, and the trees are so majestic there. They're so wise, full of wisdom. It felt like they were travelers, these trees. They felt like they existed in so many other worlds, but who they really were these trees existing in heaven. But somehow, and again, it was my human brain, I can't figure it out. These trees were copies of these trees were existing all over the universe. And I could feel just this divine knowledge and this divine intelligence behind these trees. And then Drake introduced me to the water. And the water actually approached me, and it came to my feet, and it asked me, do you want us on you? And I said, yes, I do want you on me. And the water then started from my feet first, and it went up and over me. And it just slowly bubbled up over me. And it went up and over both arms. It came up to my shoulder, went down to the end of each arm, and it went up, up, up above my head. But I wasn't worried about breathing. There was no need to breathe. I was energy, and energy doesn't need to breathe. At least in that form, I didn't need to. And so I wasn't worried about breathing, but at the same time, there was no choking. All I could feel was healing. And I could feel all of the finishing touches that I needed as far as my healing. It happened with this water. The water just went in and completed my healing. And I could feel it connect and totally encompass the top of me. And then as soon as it had gotten over every bit of who I was, then it started to slowly recede and come off of me. And the water was so amazing because you felt wet and cool, but also warm. It was to give you all these senses, but then as it came off of you, I was dry. So it gave you all these senses. It purified me, it cleaned me, and it really gave me a whole new understanding of what baptism could be. And I feel that, many times when we see a form of baptism on earth, that's what we're emulating, is we're emulating this healing bathing of energy coming over us that this water did for me. And when that water went down, that water started on me and I was one person. And when it came off of me, I was a completely different person, a completely different being. All of a sudden, I didn't have any anger towards anyone who had ever abused me or beaten me or brutalized me or done anything to me. I had no anger towards them. I had just unconditional love towards everyone, including predators of my past, including arbitrators of my damage. I felt just so much unconditional love towards all of them. And I felt like I had a better understanding why everyone was the way they were here on earth. And it was because we all forgot that we came from this space. We all forgot our own divinity. We forgot that we are these great creations that were meant for so much more than what we allow ourselves here on earth. And as I was experiencing all of this, then I noticed a building. And, I had done construction most of my life up to that point. almost 20 years. I'd done construction by then. And I saw this building. It was a masterwork. It was an all white marble building. And the entire building was one piece of marble, the entire building. The marble itself, it had light flowing it through it slowly. The light was flowing and like moving inside the marble as if it was breathing, as if it was alive. And the people that were in this building, they would go to a specific room. To me, it felt like a university, somewhere that someone would go to learn like the mysteries of the universe. And they would approach a room that they would want to go learn something, and they would have to match the love energy or the energy of that room. And out of nowhere, an opening would just form. They would go in, and then the opening would seal itself. Very liquid like, but at the same time, alive. Like the whole building was alive with a pristine consciousness of energy. And as I'm noticing this, I'm starting to want to go into the building. I wanted to go see what these people were seeing and learn what they were learning. And that's when Drake, he put his arms around me. He pulled me in and he gave me a hug. And the hug he gave me, it's very different than the hugs we get here. Because here we're in a physical body, and when we hug, we bring our two halves together, and we're prevented from being truly one. But with that, he gave me this hug. Our two energy bodies became one. And as we became one energy, one force, it felt like a pulsar or an energy boom, like burst off of us. And I felt the pristine power of loving and caring for each other. I learned how important that is just from that one hug. And that hug itself, if all of us could even witness one of these hugs, we wouldn't even have to have it done to us. If we could just witness this, we would never do anything bad again in our lives. We would try to love and support each other forever. There's so much power in just a simple hug there in heaven. And he put his arms around me. He gave me this hug. As he was giving me this hug, he whispered in my ear. He said, Vinney, this is going to be very hard, but it's going to be worth it. And as soon as he said that, I started to hear the words of my brother on earth. He was here on earth. You know, fast forward, my body was brain dead for 3 days. This is the third night I was in the hospital. My brother was saying a prayer over my body. And he was saying this prayer, blessing my body that would be made whole, that I would come back to my body. He was very afraid of the devastation that my mom would have felt if she lost her son at such a young age. And he really wanted to preserve her from that. He also loved me. And between those two aspects of his prayer, I felt that I was forced back into my body. I felt that somehow my agency, at least what I perceived as agency, was removed from me, and I was forced back into my body. My brother had said this prayer over my body around 10 p.m., and I woke up at 1:11 in the morning, the following morning. To me, it felt instantaneous. From the time that he closed that prayer with an amen, I felt like I woke up in my body, just like that. And as soon as I woke up, I looked around and I didn't understand, but I was looking for him. He wasn't there. And then I realized that I was extremely claustrophobic. I didn't know why I was so claustrophobic. Later, I understood that our soul is far bigger than our human bodies here. And for the soul to come back into the body, it feels like you're squishing a school bus into a soda can. It feels like you're squishing so much into such a small space. And that's what I felt. I felt that instantaneously as soon as I woke up. I pulled everything off of me. And you know, you can see online, there's pictures of me on life support. I pulled everything off of me, everything. And after I pulled everything off of me, I unplugged the machines. There was a few machines plugged in. A couple of them you weren't able to unplug, and I still just yanked on them until they came out of the wall. I I didn't want any noise. I didn't want anything touching me. I just stood there. I didn't even allow the hospital gown to be on me. I ripped it off. And I just stood there, just panting and breathing for a few moments. And then I realized that I was naked. And I went rifling around the cupboards. I found two gowns. I wrapped them around my middle section. And then I walked out of my room. I was ready to go home. I wanted to go home right then, right then. I didn't want to wait a moment. I wanted to go home right then. I was done. This was too much for me. I needed to go home. And I was at the elevator pushing the down button, and I was waiting for this elevator to come when I heard the screams of nurses. And they had gone in my room and saw that there was no one there. They were assuming that someone came in and stole this body that was in a coma, only to find out that I was standing out by the elevator. And they screamed again when they saw me. And I knew, in a weird way, I knew that they would get in a lot of trouble if I left. And probably security would probably meet me down at in the bottom floor if I left too. But so I went back to them. They made me sit back in the bed. I still wouldn't put too much on me. The only thing I would allow them is this one little cuff. I would allow them to put it on my finger. I think just for my oxygen or for my heart, one of the two. But that's the only thing I would allow. They kept trying to put more IVs in me, stick some things on my head, test me. I wouldn't let them, not in the beginning. But I told them I wanted to go home. They called some doctors over, and the doctors told me that there was no way I was going home. I had to do a battery of tests before I would be allowed to go home. And I said, fine, let's start the tests right now. So we did. We started all the tests, a whole list of tests that I had to do before they let me go. I was able to get released at 7:30 in the morning that very morning. So for about 6 hours and change, I had to do tests. I passed all those tests. I did have to sign about a little phone book worth of paperwork for me to be able to check myself out on my own reconnaissance. They did make me get a ride. They, obviously wouldn't let me drive. I didn't even have a car there anyway because I took the ambulance there. But my dad came and he picked me up, and that's where my story takes a different turn. My experience made me yearn for heaven. I wanted heaven so bad. That's all I could think about. It was the first thing I thought of when I woke up. It's what I dreamt about when I was sleeping. It's everything that I thought of. I started to look into the most dangerous jobs to see if I could get one of those jobs.
Wow.
So that there would be a good chance that I have a convenient accident and I get to go back. I knew I couldn't do it myself. I knew that if I committed suicide, that somehow I would still survive, but I would I would be cursed to have like all this trauma on my body and still survive. So I knew I needed to go back in the right way. So I was looking into these dangerous jobs. In fact, I had signed up. There was a crab fishing program that you could go and test. You'd pay money and you would test with this boat in Seattle. And if you passed that test, then you'd go up and test in Alaska. Then if you passed that, you could actually be a crewman on one of these king crab fishing boats. So I began the paperwork and the work to do that. Signed up. I paid some of the initial money, and I started looking forward to this date that I was going to go pass my test and make my way up to Alaska so that I could go back to heaven. And it was just after that I called an old friend, and I wanted to say sorry to her because I had been a different guy before my experience. And one of the things I told myself I was going to do is I was going to respect and love all the good people around me. That was my new way, is I needed to respect and love all people, but especially the good people around me who were always loving me, and I wasn't necessarily reciprocating that love. And this one gal, her name kept popping in my head. So I reached out to her. I said, "Hey, I know that I've ditched you a few times, but let's get together. Let's go hang out. Let's go do something." And the day that I called her, she said, well, that's funny. I'm going bowling with a bunch of friends tonight. Why don't you meet me at my house and we'll go bowling? So that's what I did. I went to her house and I knocked on her door. Nobody would open the door. I knocked on the door again. Nobody opened the door. Third time I knock on the door and I'm like pounding on the door because I can hear a bunch of people in the house. And all of a sudden that door swings open while I'm knocking and this woman is standing there. And it was this like heart-stopping moment. All of a sudden, like in her eyes, I could see like the light of heaven coming at me from her eyes. And it was the first moment that I had any hope that there was anything better in this life. And I met this, I call her my earth angel. Her name's Andrea. And blessedly, we got married. And a month before we got married, we met in April, we got married in August. We knew we were going to get married even before we went on a date. I was being encouraged by her to do new things that I traditionally wasn't doing. And one of those things was to honor my family in whatever way I could. And one of those ways was to go to a family reunion. And there was this family reunion in this little town of Wyoming called Afton, Wyoming. We went there. We saw this high school presentation on the history of the town. And we're watching this presentation. They're talking about all the founders of this little town, the first leaders of government of the state, and how different pioneers and different farmers came into this territory. And as they're doing that, they have this big slideshow on a big picture screen. And they're showing all these different founders. And up comes a picture. And at this point, I had described my guide so much to my future wife. I had described it so much that she felt that she knew what he looked like. And, I wasn't really paying attention. She saw this picture come up on the screen and she said, that's him. That's your guide. And I was like turning around. I turned around. I'm like, that's not my guide. And as I said it, as those words came out of my mouth, I froze. Because right in front of me, I was looking at a picture of Drake, like old black and white. But here's the weird thing. It didn't say his name was Drake. It said his name was Charles. And I'm like, I was thinking, God, why would you do this to me? The one little tendril to help me feel some sanity that what I went through was true. And you're giving it to me, but you're giving it to me with the wrong name. And I recognized the last name. It was my grandmother's maiden name. We went straight from there to my grandmother's house. I walk in her house and I go, Grandma, tell me about Charles Kazare. Who is this guy? And her exact response was, you mean great grandpa Drake? I can tell you all about him. And to me, that was it. Now I went from this guy that had this crazy experience that possibly was delusional to now I knew for a fact that everything that happened to me was actually real. And here was this guy, the coolest thing. Everybody officially knew him as Charles, but only his friends and family knew him by his nickname, which was his middle name, and that was Drake. And not even in official paperwork did it say his name was Drake. It just said Charles. So to me, that was just like second witness for me. Now I've had third, fourth, fifth, and thousands of witnesses since for myself to help me understand that this was a real thing and that it did happen to me for a reason. And I did go ahead and cancel my fishing trip. I didn't go try it out with the fishing boat. I went ahead and started living my life in a new way with this earth angel Andrea. We got married that August, 1 month later. And now, 21 years later, we have two amazing kids, and my life is helping people. That's what I feel my life is. My mission is to help people. I tell my story not to say that this is your story or anyone else's story, but I tell it to help people realize that our existence is much bigger than we could ever understand. We lived eternally before we got here. We live eternally after we leave here. So there's a lot more to our story, each and every one of us, than we could know. And it's important that we know there is a lot more to the story, and to not lose hope no matter what's going on, because there is a divine masterwork inside that body, and that's our soul. Our soul is that divine masterwork. But that is my experience. There's a lot more that we could talk for hours and hours about of experiences since, but that's my experience.
I've got a lot of questions. Um,
Awesome.
Vinny, that was I've heard the story before, obviously, and it hits it hits the same way every time I hear it. Um, I don't deny that that there is not a heaven. I believe there is heaven.
Mhm.
I believe in Jesus Christ, and I believe that if you do good, good things will happen to you.
Yep.
What do you think happens to those who don't do good? Do you think they'll have the same experience that you had?
I I feel that they will have a different experience. I feel though, I'm a father. I have two kids, and I have a human version of love for those kids. And there's no amount of mistakes that they could make that I would ever throw them away, ever. And that's the love of a human father. I know our creator loves us far more than the love of a human. And so there's a path even for those who make big mistakes, and lots of them. I think the most important thing for just the average Joe or Jane to understand is that even with mistakes, we don't lose our value with God, that our value is consistent and constant with God. And it's important for us to not lose hope, to always be striving to do the best that we can in our lives. We can all do better every single day in every way. We can do better. The target is to keep trying, to not give up, to not give in to fear, not give in to technology ruling your life. You know, your happiness doesn't come from TikTok or YouTube or Instagram or any of these. It doesn't come from that. Our happiness comes from caring for each other and ministering to each other and serving each other. That's where our happiness comes, because that's the closest thing to us understanding what God does for us every day.
What,
And yeah, there is a path though. For those who make big mistakes, there is a path. It's not going to be like our path, but there is a path.
mhm. When you were in heaven with Drake, your great grandfather, right? That you heard you
So
knew
yeah,
him
he's a triple great. So great grandfather. Yeah.
unbelievable. So you didn't recognize him, obviously, because you never met him.
No, never met him. Yeah, never even saw a picture of him.
It's
Never heard
unbelievable.
his name.
Were there
Yeah.
any other humans around, or just trees and grass and flowers and water
There's
and a beautiful building?
I was joking with some of my friends that I got kind of the special education uh a route. I got the route where I wasn't allowed to be around a lot of people, but I did see them off in a distance. I did. I saw all sorts of people, and actually on the journey into the heaven space, I did see a lot of people outside of heaven making their own way in too. So, um, I what's really neat, I feel that our Creator, God, creates this special path for each and every one of us, and it is custom trimmed, just like our fingerprint is just our fingerprint. No one else has that fingerprint. That's what our path is with God, and that we get that special path built just for us. And if we're not ready to quickly go into heaven, we get to take the slow road. If we're ready to quickly go in, I think we get to go in as fast as we're ready. But that's what's beautiful about it, is it's built around what we're ready for.
Vinny, did you ever think the product that you took could have been a hallucinant?
So I had been taking it actually for a while before that, and I had never had any hallucinations on it. I know that if you did end up getting a little too much, it would put you to sleep, and then you wake up a couple hours later and feel like you had a really good nap. But even if you fell asleep, someone could come wake you up. You'd just be drowsy. So it was like a sedative. It was almost like it had a sedative effect.
After this experience, you feel like you have more of a purpose in life?
Unequivocally, yes. Before this experience, I had served and cared for others, but nothing like what I feel I'm supposed to do now. I feel that my purpose on this earth is to go out there one by one, help people meet God, like help them find God inside themselves, like take them to the holiest temple on earth, which is right here between these two temples. That's what I feel is so important for me, is almost to reintroduce God to as many people as I can, because God wants a relationship with us and is constantly pouring love upon us. If we don't feel it, it's because we're blocking it. It's not because it's not being sent. It's because we're blocking it. And the number one block to love is right here, cell phone, our technology. We get so distracted with it, we forget that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. Sometimes we get trapped in the human experience and forget that we are actually spiritual beings.
Did you feel this way about God prior to your experience?
I did, but not as strong. I felt that God was this outside figure that was way distant from me, and that I didn't really have any direct access to besides maybe prayer. But I felt like prayers were kind of like writing down a wishing letter and sending it off in a bottle. I didn't feel like there was a legitimate chance of whether it would be answered or not. I knew they were powerful, but I didn't know how powerful until this experience. And now I know there's beautiful power in prayer, that with our intention, with our thoughts alone, there is supreme power. And that power is that we can really bring about great changes and beautiful changes in our life, and beautiful blessings in our life and the lives of those around us, just by using our thoughts, using prayer. But it did change me. I became a different person because of this.
I'm sure you get a lot of pushback from people, or maybe you don't, when you try to push God and let them know how important He is in your life. What do you tell those who you get pushback from?
Um, so I get a little bit of pushback, but I'm not out there saying, hey, you know, you need to accept my God, what I think is God, right? Or what I perceive God to be. I just help people understand that there is a divinity within. And if someone wants to call it, the universe, or they want to call it Allah, or they want to call it whatever they want, to me, I feel that we can always be a better version of ourselves. And that's what this is all about, is to go out there and learn how to be a better version of yourself every single day. And that the closest way we can connect to our creator is by serving each other, by going out and serving each other. Simple little things. Be nice and serve. Do to others what you would want them done unto you. So if you're lacking something, if you feel like you lack happiness, go deliver happiness to someone else. And it's the most beautiful thing. You will watch happiness develop and arrive in your heart as you deliver it to others. Yeah.
100%, man. Couldn't have said it any better myself. There's a lot of stuff happening in the world today. I think we're as divided as we've ever been. And there's a
Yes.
lot of hate. People just hate, man. There's a lot of anger. And it's hard to see. It's hard to watch. I believe a lot of
You know
people
what though?
aren't
If you go ahead, sorry.
no, I feel like people just aren't in great spots in their life. And to me, it's a relationship. It always comes down to relationships. It's what are your relationships like? Do you have a spouse that you love? Do you have a family that you love? Do you have friends that you love? Do you love what you do? All that stuff is really important. And I think it's at least it starts there, and the relationship you have with your God. And it doesn't matter who it is. Like you said, you need
Yeah.
higher up. You need somebody to just go to. You have to understand and realize that there's somebody up there that you can go to at any time. You can have a conversation with. So go ahead. What were you saying?
If anybody who believes that their happiness is something that they need to grab or hold on to outside yourself, you're mistaken, because that's not a happiness.
Mhm.
Happiness is something that arrives inside. It activates, it ignites inside as you care and take care of others. And that is real happiness, happiness that lasts, that you don't need pills to get. This is a happiness that sticks and stays. But if you took the whole world, 90% of the world would get along just fine. It's the dang leaders. It's the polarizing leaders that are doing it. And to me, um, I feel that it's these leaders. It's a lot of the news. It's a lot of even social media. They make money and they have business by separating you into teams, and whether those are sports teams or one of the worst things I've ever seen is when you watch these two football fans just go to town on each other. And what's crazy is they look exactly like each other. The only difference is one is wearing a Liverpool jersey. Like they're
Vinny,
they could
sometimes they're
pretty
wearing the same jersey. They're wearing the same
sometimes
jersey
they're wearing the
sometimes.
same.
You know?
Exactly. and
Yeah.
and here's the thing, we don't need to be on the opposing team. If we look inside, we all have red blood. We all are the same inside, only on the outside small differences. But here's the thing, there's no norm, there's no standard model. There's so many different colors and flavors of human out there, and it's really beautiful if you start appreciating the differences instead of trying to draw a big circle and say, I'm on this side of the fence, you're on the other side of the fence. I say expand your circle, include everybody, because we're all in the human class, all of us.
Yep.
But what I would do is I would take those leaders and I would say even they need love, because they've been in such a position that they have not had love around them. They allow that polarizing. It's almost like they allow themselves to be puppeted. They allow themselves to be manipulated by power structures. And that's the real danger to humanity. It's not us, it's not each other, it's not our religions, it's not our colors, it's not our lifestyles, none of that. What it is all these people saying, you're a victim, you're a victim, you're a victim. Well, guess what? I've never seen a revolution that was won by victims. And we're at a point where we can have a revolution of light, a revolution without a bullet. And that is to not be manipulated by the leaders,
Yeah.
to step forward and really obtain your own divinity, your own dignity. You don't need to be a victim. You're a child of God. You're a divine creation.
Yeah. And those leaders are the ones we have to pray for,
We do.
right?
We
Yeah.
have to pray for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're right. You're right.
And I don't care what initial is next to their name,
Yeah.
or what color party they're in.
Yeah.
Like, we need to pray for them all.
Yeah. They need it.
Yeah.
They need it the most. I mean, yeah, it's it's ugly out there. It really is. It's not good because we are so much better as human beings. They were so much better.
We are.
You're gonna have a small amount of people who unfortunately you just can't do anything about. But like
Yep.
you said, that 90% number is a believable number. It's a
Mhm.
realistic number. Yep, for
And
sure.
here's a crazy thing. 90% of the world, you go into their deep community, no matter what religion you are, and you can see that the average person is just trying to make a living, earn an honest living, most of them. They want to provide for their families, they want to grow their families, and the older people want to have grandkids. They want to live to see their grandkids. They want their grandkids to live to grow up. And this is the desire of 90% of the world. Why are we allowing all these things to separate us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, agree. Hey, what happened to your friend?
So funny thing is, he did really, really well with his experience. He was out of the hospital the very next morning. They did keep him overnight. They treated him for poison. He was fine, had no experience or anything. He, was released out of the hospital, but now he works in the nutraceutical industry. So he builds supplements, and he builds them as natural as possible, as safe as possible,
Hmm.
so that, going forward, we don't ever have something like that again. It's not like that's his life mission, but he does a great job of bringing just awesome supplements to the market for different companies.
What can you name a couple of the companies that he works with or for?
I would say five of the major companies that make supplements in the bodybuilding industry and the fitness industry, with pre-workouts and post-workouts specifically. He works with most of those companies. Yeah,
Got it. And did you follow up with that supplement that you took that day? See
I
if
did.
else any other any reviews from that supplement from
Yeah,
anybody?
so it later on, it was about 6 months later, it was classified as what they call a class 3 substance, meaning that it was controlled by the DEA at that point. So I think there was a bit of logistics or paperwork, but I know that within 1 year of my experience, it was now illegal. You couldn't get it anywhere. Yeah. Yeah, and there was a few more examples just like mine, but unfortunately, those people didn't come back. There was quite a few people across the United States doing the same thing. They took their regular liquid bottle cap and they didn't wake up. Yeah.
Holy smokes, man. When you were watching your movie, let's say, right?
Hmm.
Were you able to watch anybody else? How I picture heaven is you're upstairs in this beautiful place, and you're able to just kind of oversee everybody, all of your loved ones, and what they're thinking and doing at all times. Did you have that experience? Did you see any of that or experience any of
I
that?
did. Here's what's weird. If I was bored enough that I would think of someone at home, I could be right there with them at that very moment, the second I thought about them. But for me, there was so much going on that was not possible. Not until I actually heard my brother saying the prayer over me. And then I was right there. I was hearing it as if he was whispering it or saying it right in my ear. And I could see his face actually saying this prayer over me. So it's really interesting though. It's almost like the joystick of your existence is your consciousness or your mind. So you're able to instantly, once you get to this high level of heaven, you can essentially go to any other level that's lower than that. That would be Earth. That would be anyone on Earth. So it does give you quite a bit of freedom to go wherever you want to go at any time. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Um, no family was there when you woke up in the hospital.
No, nobody was there. And yeah, I think that, it was my third night being a coma patient. So they didn't think I was going to wake up. And the doctors had warned my family that they needed to look for what they call palliative care. It's the care for someone who's in a coma. And my brother even showed me this one pamphlet a doctor gave him. And this was back in 2003. That's very expensive care, I'll tell you. To set someone up in palliative care, it's not a cheap thing. And when the doctor gave my brother that pamphlet, it wasn't just the money of it. It was the fact that, wow, this is real. Like Vinny's not waking up. I need to do something. And he had actually witnessed two other men give me prayers or blessings 2 nights in a row. And this was with the third night that I was there. He decided, you know what? I gotta help mom. Mom, this is gonna devastate mom. And she didn't know yet. She was in Texas taking care of my uncle, and she had no idea any of this was going on. So he wanted to make sure that he did the best that he could, and he used that love that he had for mom and that love that he had for me, and it felt like he lassoed me down, like he just whipped that lasso, got me, and just yanked me right down with that prayer. That's
Hmm.
what it felt like. It really felt like that.
You
Yeah.
said your relationship with your father was a little bit rocky, but you also mentioned
Yeah.
that he picked you up from the hospital. What was that like when he picked you up?
So it's kind of odd, but when he picked me up, the only thing he said, "You okay?" And I said, "Yeah." And we were just silent for a few minutes, and then he said, "Are you going to go to work?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll go tomorrow." And he's like, "Okay." And then we just went home. We didn't talk anything else about it. Neither him or I were very much about words.
Hmm.
I love my father. Through my experience, I learned to really love that man. I didn't know the upbringing that he was given, and he was giving me a better upbringing than I got, or than he got. So to him, he was doing a good job. But let's just say it was a less effective job that he was doing. But I'll tell you what, though, I love that man with all my heart. and he's still alive. My mom is on the other side now,
Mm,
and I feel her close to me all the time,
mm.
almost every day. And so, our loved ones are right there with us all the time.
Has your relationship grown with your father since?
It has, in a different way, in a way where I lovingly um, lovingly let him have his life in his distant way. He doesn't live here in the States. He lives in another country, and we keep connected here and there as we can across country borders.
You mentioned while you were telling the story that you were seeing yourself as a kid and your adult life and the things that you were going through, the good and the bad. Was it essentially just a snippet of your life?
It felt like, time didn't exist, and it felt like time got paused somehow, and I saw every single moment, every moment. Like there was no moment left off, like
You're
no
talking from like
moment.
the day you were born.
Yeah, from the day I was born, but I didn't see every moment. I was just seeing either the bad or the good that I did. I didn't see the mundane, the parts of life that you weren't really having good or bad happen to you. But I did see when I specifically chose to do something bad, or when I specifically chose to do something good or serve another. I did see a few moments where I didn't even know I was doing good and I was doing good. There was a few of those, and that was pretty neat too. Yeah.
You mentioned that you had some experience with drugs. Were those the bad moments that that you experienced that you saw?
No, my bad moments were my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the drug moments, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see them like I did with my childhood moments. Growing up, I had a major chip on my shoulder for men, especially, adult leaders in whatever form they were. They could be a teacher, they could be a coach, they could be anything. And I just had a chip on my shoulder, and I felt like it was my job to prove I was more of a man than they were somehow. And I lived my life that way, from about 14 years old all the way into my 20s. And it was interesting because I started to clean up the energy of my life. I got sober. I started going back to church. I was doing bodybuilding, and then this happened. So I had already started well upon my path of cleaning up my life when this happened. Um, and I feel that I was going in the right direction too as I was trying to clean up my life. Yeah,
How about the rookie medic? Did you ever come in contact with him? Do you still talk
I
to him?
did.
Yeah.
So I lost contact with him, but I did talk to him. I reached out to him right after, and I went to the medical transport company, the ambulance owner, and I reached out to them. They wouldn't give me his information, but from the bill that I had from the ambulance, I actually had the first initial and his last name. So I knew which company he was dispatched out of. I went down there one day and I was like, "Hey, I'm looking for this one guy." They pointed him out to me, and I walked up to him and I say, "Hey, do you recognize me?" And he's like, "No." And I'm like, "I was the dead guy. I was the guy you brought back." And the craziest thing, I thought he would be emotional. He just went real silent and just went rigid. And he's like, "Why are you here?" and I told him, I go, "I just wanted to thank you. I wanted to take you to lunch. I wanted to talk to you. Is that okay?" And he explained that he had a lunch in about 20 minutes. If I wanted to wait, I could go to lunch with him. So we went down the street, like almost walking distance. We did drive, both of us. We went to this little gas station that had a sandwich place in it. We each got a sandwich. He wouldn't even let me buy his sandwich. Just the kind of guy he was. To me, hero through and through. He wouldn't even allow me to buy a silly sandwich for him. We sit down. We're sitting there eating, and one of the first things I ask him is I go, "Do you know you were glowing?" And he's like, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, when I was watching you, I was watching you from above. And as soon as I started to talk about seeing him from above, he said, I don't want to hear about that." It made him very nervous and uncomfortable. And I wanted to honor him because he'd done so much for me. So I said, "Okay, okay. Can I just ask you, how did you know I wasn't all the way dead?" And he said, word for word, he goes, I don't know. I just knew. I had a gut instinct that this one, that you weren't all the way gone. Somehow you weren't all the way gone beyond return. Somehow I just knew. And he got in a lot of trouble, by the way. He told me, yeah, I got in a lot of trouble. He was on probation. They put him on probation because he had broken protocol. He almost got fired, and they even told him, they said, we might fire you for this. And because I survived, they of course didn't fire him. They just put him on probation. But he did thank me. He said, I'm glad this happened because I was on probation. I've been also looking into becoming a fireman, and I just passed my fireman test. So there's a big test they have to take. He passed it, and he felt like he knew he could do it because he had done all this already now. And so he knew he could take it to a whole nother level and be a fireman. So he was in the active process when I saw him last of transferring over and becoming a fireman. Later, I did look in on him at the ambulance company, and they did tell me he had transferred to fire. So he is he's been a fireman now for more than 20 years since then. So it's been a grip.
That is wild, man. That is wild. What a wild story, Vinny. What are you doing for a living today?
So I'm what you would classify as like a life coach or a motivational coach. I work with people primarily with spiritual things, but I work with all aspects of things. What I do is I help people connect to their own intuition. I help them find clarity of purpose, find out why they're here, what they're here to do, and what I like to do is I like to help them unlock that for themselves. And not that I deliver that for them, I help them deliver it to themselves. And that's what it's really about. The work that I do is I help people leave the past in the past, and just exactly what I did, heal their past and move forward into the future that they were meant to live. That's what I do for a living. Yeah.
Nice, man. That is great. And what were you doing prior?
Prior, I was building homes. I was a framer contractor. I had actually worked as a general contractor and as a superintendent as well. But I did have a nice little fun stint where I worked for a TV show, and I did that for, off and on for about 3.5 years, and that was a lot of fun too. I did some movies too. Yeah.
But after this experience,
After this, I stuck with construction for a little bit longer,
hmm,
and then I got into construction management, and I stuck with that until about 10 years ago, and started working for a contracting company. And then a few years back, I started doing the coaching thing. I've always been coaching people, but I wasn't doing it like where I set up a professional business to do that. I did that a couple of years ago, and it's been really successful. Yeah,
good.
I feel that for me, the success is the fact that people refer so many others to me, and to me, that's where my success is if I'm doing my job right, people will constantly refer.
Your number one salesman is a satisfied customer.
Yes, exactly. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
I'll let everybody know
One
about it.
and the rule of thumb is one bad customer can tell up to 10 people, and one good customer will tell up to three.
Right.
So you've got to keep a lot of good customers out there. And to me, I like to think of my clients as my friends, as I could invite them over to my home anytime, or they might invite me over to their home. And if, in fact, quite a few, I've gone over to their home and worked with them directly. Yeah,
Awesome, Benny. Do you remember the thoughts in people's heads?
I do.
What works?
And hauntingly, I remember the thoughts, and I'll tell you a couple of them. Like after they found the body, a couple of the workers at the Dairy Queen, they went running in the back, and there was like this fry cook guy back there, and they told him, they're like, dude, there's a dead body in the bathroom, come look. And they were all going around to come look at this dead body, and I heard him say loud as day, I've seen enough death, I don't need to see any more. And he just shook his head, and he's all, not for me, man, not for me. But in his mind, he was saying to himself, I've seen enough death, I
Hmm.
don't need to see any more. Also, the whole time the manager was doing all the things he was doing, including talking to 911, he was hearing his mother's voice, like ranting on him in his head. You're not going to make anything of yourself if you stay in that stupid fast food job. You're never going to make anything of yourself. Like he kept hearing that again and again and again. It's almost like that was a broken record playing in the background of his mind. Also, there was the gentleman who tried to use the bathroom. He kept getting up, and it's weird. He was having a hard time with the new daughter-in-law he had, and I could hear his thoughts of how does she love her so much? And he was talking about his wife. Like, how can he love this new daughter-in-law, or how can his wife love this new daughter-in-law so much? She hardly knows her. And he kept thinking thoughts like, well, I'm going to hold back. I'm going to see. I'm going to wait and see if this even lasts. And I mean, simple things like that. Why would I know these things? And to me, either God is really about entertainment, or this was real stuff going on. Either way. And then I also did hear the assistant manager in the restaurant. She was the one being forced to touch the body to see if it was alive. And she kept like cussing. And she was like a good Christian girl.
Hmm.
But in her mind, she kept saying, why don't you effing touch the body? Why don't you do this? Why don't
Right.
and she didn't like that her manager was forcing her to touch the body.
Sure. And then sleeping, like how long did it take you to get a good night's sleep? Because I can imagine this thing was on your mind for a while, right?
Yeah. It's weird. I slept really good the first night I came back. So as soon as I went home, I actually went jogging. To me, that was the closest thing to feeling like I was escaping my body. So to me, running and jogging, I kept running until I felt like I was going to pass out. Then I'd stop for a moment and just walk. And then I went jogging again until I felt like I was going to pass out and stop for a moment. And I was blessed to live near a beautiful canyon. And so I was going up in that canyon, and then I came back home. After about like 2.5, 3 hours of running, I finally had exhausted myself. I remember doing a little bit of studying of some things I was interested in. I didn't watch any TV or anything. I just went straight to bed that night and slept really good that night. But the next morning, I woke up and I had dreamt about heaven the whole night.
Mm.
And so all I could think about was heaven. And that's why I went straight back to work. Working in construction, you start your job sites fairly early. I knew I had to be on site at about 6:30 in the morning, dressed and ready and tooled up. And so I got there 6:30, and the first thing out of my boss's mouth is, he's like, "Where the hell have you been? We thought you died." And I was like, "I actually did." And he was up on this roof when I said that, and he was like, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, I actually did die. I thought I was dead too, but I guess not. I'm back here now. You want me to still work for you?" And he's like, "Of course I do. There's work to do." So we just went back to work. Later on, a few days later, he asked me a bunch of questions about it, and still to this day, that man is one of my Larry. You know who you are. You're one of the best bosses I ever had. One of the best examples of one of the best examples of a good man, and to me, an unsung hero, just like that medic, man. There's so many unsung heroes on this planet. They're everywhere,
Yeah.
male and female, and all in between. There's so
Yeah.
many unsung heroes here.
Yeah, indeed. What about a book? You gonna write a book, or you gonna? I mean, this could easily be a great movie.
I did a book. I was sharing my experience only verbally for many years. And every time I get done sharing it, I would have a group of people come around me at the end and say, "Where's your book? I want to buy your book." And I kept trying to write the book. I tried for 12 to 13 years. Finally, I gave up, and I'm like, you know what? I can't write this book because I'm not doing it justice. I'm trying to describe something that human words can't describe. And truly, I'm not a writer. I was doing my very best. This is back before the AI days. You couldn't just send this off to an AI to write the book for you. So I waited. I kept asking. Every time I met a writer, I would ask my own intuition, is this the one that's supposed to help me? And I met many writers and very successful authors. And one day I was in this writing camp. I was one of the writers in this writing camp. I met this amazing guy, and he did this writing exercise. His name's Lynn Taylor. And as soon as I read his writing exercise, I instantly thought, wow, wouldn't it be amazing if he helped me write this book? And as soon as I had that thought, just this peace, this total peace settled into me. And then I heard like a resounding, ask him. And so I walked over to him and I go, hey, Lynn, I know you hardly know me, but I feel like you're supposed to help me write my book. And if you check our book, the whole story is in there. But he felt the same thing. He felt like he was supposed to write the book too.
Wow.
And I feel like he was working on the book for a long time, but I think by the end, the book was working on him. I really do, because there was a lot of beautiful things happening for him in an amazing way. And even our publisher, yeah, our publisher himself is it's Richard Paul Evans, amazing author him alone. He's the creator of more than 45 New York Times bestsellers, and does very well with his own writing. And he knew that as soon as we had a book ready, he wanted to be the publisher of it, because he felt like it was part of his mission to get this story out to the world. So we have a book, Amazon and Audible.
What's it called?
It's called The Light After Death.
The Light After Death.
Yep. And they can get it either through our website, which my website's livinggodslight.com. That's my nonprofit where we do coaching, we do all of that. And that has a page that takes them right to Amazon to buy it if they want to. Yeah.
Cool. You got any friends in the movie business?
I do. I still am connected with a few people. In fact, one of the DPs, or the director of photography from the old TV show I worked on, I'm still friends with him, and actually a couple of them, two of the DPs I'm still friends with. But we've talked about it. We haven't had any legit works yet on it, but I know that we'll probably end up making it into some type of production, whether it's just on YouTube or something.
Yeah, even a short story. I mean, this would be really, really eye-opening to a lot of people. Did we miss anything, Vinney? Did we hit everything? Is there anything else that we should talk about?
We pretty much hit everything. The one thing that I think is important for everybody to understand, one of the most important things I had to learn to get into heaven was to understand prejudice. And I felt that I wasn't prejudiced at all. I was raised with Korean sisters, and me being Caucasian, that might be hard to see, but yeah, I'm Caucasian. Just kidding. and my Korean sisters, I felt more in kinship with them sometimes than my own blood brother and my blood sister. And so I felt I wasn't having any type of prejudice in my life. And that's when Drake showed me. He said, I know that you think you don't have prejudice, but how do you feel about prejudiced people? And I went off. Like, let me tell you about prejudiced people. And I went off. Mm-hmm. And he showed me, he took an effigy or an image of who I was, and he lifted it off of the non-prejudiced side of life. And he took it and he dropped it down on the prejudiced side of life. And he showed me, by me hating prejudiced people, I was one. And that for me to truly embody the love of God, the love of the Creator, I had to abandon even prejudice towards prejudiced people. That every person on this earth has a path, and that they have their own story. And it's not my job to judge that journey. But what I can do is I can heal prejudice with love and with service. And think about that. Take someone who chooses a certain characteristic of someone else and says that they feel a prejudice towards that characteristic of person. If that very person comes and starts to serve them, how long can they own that prejudice? Not long at all. And so, the answer to prejudice is not protests. It's not boycotting. What it is serving and loving and proving that it doesn't exist in you. That's how you solve prejudice. But I think to me right now, that's so important. There's so many people waving their victim flag. Everybody's got a victim flag. And guess what? There's been no innovation by victims ever. Every great innovation on this planet has been done by someone who looked past all the differences. They looked past what the eyes could see and allowed their heart to believe what was possible. And that's how innovation is done. But to me, that's one of the most important things I learned. I did learn a lot more than just that, but that's one of the most important things. And I feel prompted that that's something important to share with your audience. Yeah.
Beautiful. I've learned a ton. I think this is a stamp of approval for me to not fear death, and
Yeah.
it's also it's one that we're not here very long, and
Mhm.
might as well while we're here, let's make a difference in lives. Let's do whatever it takes to be good, do good, make people happy, stay positive. I mean, just be at peace with yourself, because stress will come. But if you're at peace with yourself, you're able to handle the stress a little bit easier, because it's so fast, Vinny. Like life goes
It
so
is.
quick. And man, we're here. We can do so much. We can do so much. And it's a reminder to myself, because I don't think that way all the time, but I'm starting
Mhm.
to. I'm starting to. And I love this story, because I know for a fact heaven exists. And it's like,
Yep.
man, when I get up there, I'm gonna am I going to um be upset at myself that I didn't do the things that I wanted to do, so this by the way, would you be upset about the stuff that you didn't want to do? I'm sure there's stuff on everybody's bucket list
You
or
know, I feel that as long as I'm giving a good effort, I'm going to be okay. I am. I've really settled into that. I also don't want to be lazy with it either. I want to make sure I'm taking advantage of opportunities to do good for others. But
yeah.
I'll tell you, it really boils down to this in the future, and I mean the immediate future. It is going to be so vitally important for this world, for the entire planet, to not believe what their eyes are seeing, but to believe what their heart is saying, because they're not going to agree with each other. Your eyes will see one thing, your heart will tell you something different. And that's where that intuition comes into play. Follow that intuition. It's stronger than logic and your eyes, what you can see with your eyes, because there is going to be some strong efforts to keep us all in a place of fear, because it's very easy to maneuver us and manipulate us as human beings when we're in a state of fear. But when we're not in a state of fear, we choose what we do. We don't react to do what we do. We choose what we do. And how important it is in our future, especially immediately, that we allow ourselves to be choosing what we do, not reacting to do what we do. Yeah.
It's beautiful, man. God bless you, my brother. I appreciate you so much, man.
Thank
Incredible
you.
story. Yeah, incredible story. You know what? I want to get my phone, and I want to write the website down so I could put it in the show notes. So hopefully that'll people can click it,
Awesome.
go to your
You
website.
got it.
See. Okay, I am ready.
It's triple W livinggodslight.com.
www.livinggodslight.
Yeah, livinggodslight.com.
Okay. Any other links we should put in the show notes?
You can put the lightafterdeath.com if you want to. That's the alternate site. That's the site just for the book, but either one is great,
Okay.
or both.
Okay. Do you want to
Yeah.
promote your Instagram page?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at it's at Vinney Tolman. So VINNEYTOLMAN.
Okay.
That's my Instagram, and then my Facebook. I'm on Facebook too. If they just type in Vinney Tolman, I'll come up on
Okay.
Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. I think the one that we were talking on Instagram was the same one, right? The Vinney Tolman.
I think so. Let me
Yeah.
see. I have two of them. I have a personal and then I have a public. I think I was talking to you on the one I use is the public one. That's the one I use every day.
Okay.
So let's see here. It is, yeah, at Vinney Tolman is that one. And that's the one we were talking on. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The one that I showed Vinny, it says Vinny Todd.
Oh, let me see. Maybe that is the other one.
I just want to make sure I put the right one.
Let me see here. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
You want that
Either
one?
one's either one's good. You know what?
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
the Vinney Tolman. That's actually the one that I use as a public one. Yeah. So we must have connected out of the private one.
Okay, I see it
But
now.
actually I don't care. I'm good with either one.
All right. All right. Okay.
I need to use both. I need to use all the social medias more. Um, but let me tell you what my Facebook one is. Let's see.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't do this.
Okay.
We have
Yeah, it's okay.
we have a gal who does this. Let's see here. Yeah, just Vinney Todd Tolman.
Okay.
What it is.
All right.
Yeah,
Good deal.
yeah,
All right, man. Thank you again so much, Vinny. I hope
yeah. Thank you.
we'll keep in touch. You're a great guy and you got great energy, and I'm sure you're a hell of a coach because of that. So
Thank you very much. I appreciate you. It's kind of cool. About a year ago, that logo that you have on your wall behind you,
yeah.
I saw that logo and in fact I drew it. I'm not kidding.
What?
I was doodling one day and I drew that logo. Like even the widow's peak on it, I just did it. Like I'm not kidding. That's as soon as you started, I was like, whoa. The
Yeah.
only thing I didn't do right is I did all the same color. I did the hair, the eyebrows, and the beard all the same color. But I was just doodling and I did that exact. I'm not kidding. If I could go find it, I don't even know where it would be, but I was in one of my journals and I did that.
Just
So when
cause,
I saw that, I was like, what the heck? I've seen that before.
just cause. I mean, just
Well, I draw. I used to be what do we call him now? A street graphic artist?
yeah. But did you see this logo and
No, not until just not until today. Yeah, right now. So when I saw it, I was like, where how do I know that logo? And then it snapped in my brain. You drew that logo about a year ago. I was like, oh, I did. I was up at my buddy's ranch up near Zion's, and we were doing some planning for the book and everything. And as I did, I just was just kind of doodling, right? And when I got done, I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool logo. And at the time, I had like a full beard,
yeah.
and I was thinking, but my hair's a little different. But it's really cool though. You have that logo behind you. That's
Wild.
awesome.
Talk about
That's
manifesting,
really
huh?
I know, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Man.
And that's cool. That's really awesome.